Today's episode is brought to you by our up-and-coming online Snatch MasterClass. This is on the 26th of August. It will take approximately 4 hours. At the time of listening to this, the early bird price of €89 will still be available, and the regular price of $99 will be in effect after this Sunday. It will go over the Snatch technical model, our Snatch technical model. It'll go over how we teach the lifts, the first, second pull, transition, pull under, the overhead squat, assistance work, programming, sets and reps, frequency, programming for masters, programming for 140 kilo snatches, 160 kilo snatches, 100 kilo snatches. You'll see it all. Strengths relation to the snatch and how we come about that, pulling, assistance work, mobility, all of that good stuff. And sign up, send us an email at secretstrength.com. We will try and give you 25 odd years of weightlifting experience and learning from all these different national teams, and try and condense it into a 4-hour important, or a little bit less, time for a Q&A at the end. Hopefully try and condense it down into what we feel is the most important things for you to look out for. So if you're a coach or an athlete, a beginner or advanced, I think you'll get a lot from this. We want to give you the most value for your money, and hopefully you can begin or enhance your current mastery of the snatch, or being a snatch teacher. Even if you're an athlete, you'll get loads out of this. If you're an S&C coach, you'll get loads out of this. If you're a weightlifting coach, you'll definitely get a lot of this. If you're an amateur weightlifter, you'll get a lot of this. If you're a competitive international weightlifter, you'll get something out of this. Welcome back to Seek Strength, and welcome back to Seek Stand. Just before we get going, the idea that this is more of a podcast episode, because there's a lot to talk about a recent trip to the Korean National Training Centre. So if you are looking for some lunchtime content to watch, just make sure this is something you're listening to, and it's going to be a bit of a while, so just get the format
bit of a longer form.
Get the mindset right before you listen to this, just in case you
feel
think
like we're warming people's brains up.
Yeah, this isn't a vlog of the International Training Centre, because we actually weren't allowed video.
Yeah. I'm so shocked we were allowed in there.
So it was the first time this had ever happened.
Yeah.
Foreigners were allowed into the Korean National Training Centre. So just to set the scene, most recently, on our most recent trip, we were away in Japan and Korea, as a lot of you know. And as some of you might have known, we were also in the Korean training Olympic compound out in the mountains, about a 2-hour drive from Seoul, and we were very lucky to get the opportunity to go there and see the national training team of the weightlifting in session. And we saw basically the entire men and women's team, who are currently on the national Korean team at the moment, some very, very high level world record weightlifters training in the Korean National Training Centre. Now, just to kind of show the sequence, or the chains of degrees of separation of how we got there. So
just a little sizzle to hook you in. We saw 3 lifts that were within 5 to 10 kilos of world records. Yeah,
very close to in clean and jerks.
Just a normal Friday training session.
So there is a gentleman in the Korean National Training Centre who works as a video analyst. He's a biomechanist by trade and by qualification, and his name is Joseph. Now, Joseph didn't actually tell us his real.
He did.
Did he tell us his real name? I just don't remember. So
he said, "Don't bother even trying."
Yeah, it's Joseph is what he said. Call us an absolute gentleman. And Joseph works in the National Training Centre. He does all the video analysis at competitions. He does the video analysis for the athletes during their training sessions. And he also is a very much a weightlifting enthusiast.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't do a lot of weightlifting himself. He does a little bit here and there, and he's dabbling. And he's been working in the National Training Centre for, I think, about 2 years. And he consumes a lot of weightlifting content, and he watches Seek Strength, and he watches Zach Delander, and he watches Clarence Kennedy. And he heard that we were in Japan and that we were coming to Korea, and he reached out via kind of 2 different people and offered us this opportunity. And there was a lot of brokering going on. I'm really condensing down a lot of what happened, because while we did get to go there, it was a massive undertaking in terms of like permissions and being allowed to go there. And we weren't allowed to film anything. We could take some photos, but absolutely no videoing of anything was allowed. So there is this gentleman, Mr. Sangu, who is the head of Alico distribution for Asia, I believe. He's a massive. We were at his warehouse, and that was the Alico gym, the Alico training center you saw us go to.
It's the TN, so it's like train, but instead of an R, there's an E. So TN is his company. Unbelievable training center.
So he's like the big dick of Alico in Asia. He was contacted by Joseph, and I think Joseph also contacted Joseph contacted Yang Ho, Django of We Lift Weights, who he knew we were with them.
The main man
himself.
The puppeteer of the trip.
So he was in contact with him. The Mr. Sangu, the head of Alico in Asia, or distribution in Asia, or whatever you want to call it, was also a former member of the national team. At the age of 21, he did 160, 200, squatted 280, 285 maybe as an 82 kilo lifter. Very good. Had to retire because of a back injury, or he did those numbers after rehabbing from a back injury that took him 2 years to rehab. So from the age, I think in 21, he came back, improved, hit these numbers, and was like, I think he finished there. And then he moved on to obviously the rest of his life and doing this kind of stuff. So the national coaches are talking, Yang is talking, Joseph's talking, Mr. Stangu's talking. There's all these phone calls going on for better part of a day or two, organising everything. Huge issues with getting permission and like how many people are coming, who's allowed. They were trying really hard to get us permission to video stuff, but we were not allowed video anything. The permission wasn't an issue with the weightlifting coaches or the weightlifting team, not even the weightlifting federation. It was with the Olympic Council. You have to get permission. The head Olympic Council of Korea, you have to get permission to video there, and there's a lot of effort in that, and there has to be kind of good reasons. And there was, from what we were told, a little bit of kind of like because it was like social media. There's some older individuals involved in the upper echelons. They were a little bit like, kind of like, you know the story, you know what I'm trying to say. So you read between the lines there, and they were kind of like, basically like, what's the point?
Why?
We were still allowed to go and watch, and we were staying in Korea, Seoul. We were staying there, and we got a 2-hour bus to the National Training Centre, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I'm not being over the top when I say this was genuinely the most impressive sports facility I'd ever seen. Having been involved in sports for a long, long time, nothing has rivaled this. So initially we pull up, there's kind of dorm rooms, there's apartments, there's the general cafeteria and kind of living areas. Like, there's a lot of athletes resident here from all of their Olympic sports. I think besides the winter sports are resident there. Walk through their general S&C hall, which is, if you were in an elite college weight room in the States, that's what that general S&C hall would be. We walked through there. It's a kind of multi-story building. Surrounding the walls on each side is each Olympic medalist since forever, basically kind of wrapping around the walls. Their photographic portrait and a picture of their team, I think, and their name. So that's very, very cool. But that's kind of a general training area. So that's for S&C. That's where sports who might not have a kind of gym room to themselves, which from what I could see, the weightlifters had one, the wrestlers had one, a few teams had their own dedicated kind of lifting areas. But for the other sports, like there was a softball team in there when we walked through.
I think everyone passes through this area. It's like, imagine kind of any college football, America gym, and like quadruple the size of it. But same, you've seen a lot of those videos. You've seen Lee Sang doing some squats there, and you've seen some other members of the national team doing some bodybuilding and stuff in there. Yeah,
giant, big gym. Then you walk out of there, we get a lift up to the next story, which kind of brings us out onto the next split level. The training centre's in the mountain, so everything's kind of on a slope. And then you walk past probably 5 or 6 buildings of similar size. Like, it's a town. It's not like this small little village with a gym. It's a big facility.
It's immaculately clean.
Yeah.
Like, all the buildings are really clean. The roads are really clean. The tarmac is really clean. The what you call that soft tar for running on? The asphalt is really clean. Like the gym, the S&C area was immaculate. Everything was
Crazy.
spotless. Everything was like, everyone had their full sets of plates on their cages. Everything was just immaculate. They had a big projector on the wall for the softball team's S&C.
Yeah.
It was actually in English, weirdly enough, so you could see what they were doing with pictures, and it was like the most, like, not correct is probably a pretentious word to use, but it was the most, like,
The most typical. It would be the most expected.
it was, they started off with their fast, high-skilled movements, then a little bit of accessory stuff, then into their big kind of compound movements, and then into their kind of bodybuilding. So it was like fast movements, kind of activation movements, whatever you want to call it. Let's say it was like jumping, then single leg RDLs, then they were doing, I think they were squatting that day, then they had some pressing, and then some smaller assistance work, like just typical.
Absolutely. What I would equate those training sessions to is if you were in third or fourth year of an exercise science degree and you had coaching science and performance 4,
Yeah.
that's the training that would be put up in front of you.
And nobody was doing fucking Bosu ball split squats, or no one was trying to do 90-degree
There was
pause
no
isometric.
earthquake bars
No
to
earthquake.
be seen anywhere.
No earthquake bars to be seen anywhere. No fucking 90-degree isometric fucking nonsense. There was nothing. It was like weights, machines, track, treadmills, aerobic machines. Works. Was it all works then? Or was Alico in there? I think it was Alico in there, was it?
Well, all I remember is that Mr. Shangju had basically provided all of the equipment for that entire training hall.
It's
Is
just
what we were told.
so fucking cool.
Yeah.
The S&C area for me would have been enough. It was enough to make me want to work with Olympic teams.
Yeah, no, it was very, very cool. And it's laid out, so as you walk in, it's a big long length of the hall going down. And then you have, like, was it 12 or 15 workstations? And then those workstations are laid out laterally across. You have a squat cage in the middle, and then you've all your machines are in a line. So basically everybody has access to probably 8 to 10 machines, including like your squat cage in a row.
Every conceivable machine.
Every conceivable machine of every iteration. Running track around the outside. I think there was a raised running track upstairs as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's your first kind of introduction to the training centre, is that.
Yeah, I'd love to just have my office, my desk in the like asphalt above, looking down on it for a month and just watch everything that goes on there. See all the teams come through, see the wrestlers training there, see the judo athletes training there, see the softball, the soccer, whatever. I'd love to see everyone come through there and see it moving, like, you know.
And it was very much a highly structured, like, their session was on the TV, their coaches were with them, you saw them working through, they were all in like a huddle and chatting, and then they were working through just as we were walking through briefly, you know. Then you go outside, so when you leave, pretty much everything was a covered walkway, which the day we were there was very, very useful because there was around 1.5 inches of rain fell in probably half an hour. So covered walkway, you go up a hill, then there is a full running track and kind of track and field area that is entirely covered by a roof that's probably 30 feet off the ground.
Isn't it so weird that it's just myself and Dara were so like, and not enamored by that. I think enamored is probably the right word. We were just like, you just don't ever see covered. You see in-door all the time, of course, but you never see outdoor covered running tracks.
I've been to so many training facilities, seen so many of them. I've never seen that.
Never seen a covered. Yeah.
And I've seen loads of really torn up running tracks, like the one in UL. They had to change complete, like they tore everything up.
Yeah.
Why would you not just cover it?
It makes no sense because it's permanent. And it makes, like, in a country like Ireland, you never see it in the outdoor tracks.
No.
It's not that expensive to, if you have a track, if you're UCC or someone, you can have a covered track. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe for optics of watching it, it's probably a bit harder for an outdoor one.
Maybe. Yeah.
But we proceed anyway into the weightlifting section. It's up on the second floor, and it's in kind of a building, like, imagine like a very big warehouse, like an Amazon kind of size warehouse. I think there was other areas further down that I don't know what was in there, we weren't told, but there was other sports involved. But the weightlifters have basically 2 very large rooms, and you've seen the main room in like Jan Hack's videos, Lee Sang's videos, any of those National Training Centres videos. That massive room is probably the size of a a GA pitch in Ireland or a soccer pitch.
Yeah, I'd say both
American
both
football
rooms
pitch.
put together are the size of a soccer pitch, 100 meters by 50 meters across.
Yeah, all wood panelled.
Oh,
Yeah, so the first room is essentially a little plyometric area or kind of a warm up area. There's the laminated flooring, and then there is this kind of small, kind of tennis court sized, soft rubber plastic kind
Yeah.
of section, taped off, loads of different tapes on it. Kind of a basketball court sized kind of area.
yeah, and it's like, it's thick.
Mm-hmm.
It's thicker than anything you'd expect. Like, it's probably 20 centimeters or 30 centimeters of padding. Like,
Yeah.
it's like what you'd have in a kid's play zone at the bottom of a slide.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we walked in there first, the whole weightlifting team was just sitting on it.
So yeah, they were sitting on this kind of rolled up mat, doing just some general banter, general chit chat. So everyone was waiting for everyone to arrive. So on Fridays they have this thing called Fridays on Fire,
Which
so
is the sickest thing in the world.
I must ask Yang what the name for that was in Korea. So basically, Fridays on Fire is what they call Big Friday, and I think we all kind of agreed that Fridays on Fire is much cooler than Big Fridays.
It is sick.
The only reason Big Friday, 100% Big Friday was cool was because Ilya made it cool. But if someone else tried to come up with 100% Big Friday, it wouldn't have been cool. But Ilya's the GOAT, so it is cool. It is cool.
Fridays on Fire is the coolest.
Fridays on Fire is pretty cool.
Fridays on Fire should be on a t-shirt.
Yeah, Fridays on Fire should definitely be on a Seek Strength t-shirt. Fridays on Fire. It was just...
Yeah.
So they're all in there. Eventually everyone gathers. They're sitting on their mat. They have their shoes off, chit-chatting, talking to each other. Fairly quiet atmosphere. Not a lot of shouting or whatever. Then the coaches come in, or the coach who's warming them up comes in, and everyone lines up into basically what I can think of as like a PE class.
Yeah.
If you've played team sports, it's the most generic setup for a warm up, and I don't mean generic in a bad term. I mean like it's the template for warm up. Everyone like lines up into lines of 5 or 6. Everyone seems to know who to line up with, and then they move through a series of like walking lunges, walking hamstring stretches, little jogs. And what was the funniest part about this is, I mean, Fitz were laughing at this the most because it's something, if you've played team sports forever, you'll know everyone does this, where it's like you do a lunge and you touch your toes, but then you'll take like 5 big steps in between, and then you'll do your next lunge. And they were all doing it, and there was like supers doing it, and they were taking like bigger lunges.
It was exactly what a warm-up should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I think most recreational weightlifters miss out on, and why their movement probably isn't as good or as sharp as it could be, or it's sharp, it's kind of inconsistency in how good it is like they did a legitimate warm-up for probably 15 to 20 minutes.
I'd say probably about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So they started doing these walking stretches, jumping jacks, arm circles. They did this kind of, I won't call it a plyometric warm-up, but this really active warm-up where it's not even a dynamic warm-up. They were moving, they were doing little jogging,
Yeah.
they were doing little skips, and they were doing these kind of active stretches. You know, you walk into it, touch your toes, step out into a lunge.
It's just an actual warm-up. Like you're actually warming up.
So they did their actual warm-up. Then they got into a big circle, then did a typical dynamic warm-up like necks, elbows, wrists, shoulders, hips, knees, all that kind of stuff.
And then the next piece, they went and got short hurdles, or like really low hurdles, probably 7 centimeters off the ground.
Yeah.
Everybody got their one. At this point, probably 5 or 6 people left and went and sat on the mat again. And there were people who were injured or rehabbing things, weren't going to be doing that kind of more dynamic jumps, but they were doing lateral hops, they were doing hop and lands, they were doing bunny hops over the hurdles, they were doing single leg jumps. And yeah, like you can see how that kind of priming exercise is very, very useful. But my main takeaway from watching that part of the warm-up is these are elite level athletes, professionals. Pretty much everyone there's an international weightlifter. A lot of people there are going to the Olympics.
Or hopefully, yeah.
And they had the shortest hurdles you can buy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, nobody needs big, massive jumps in their warm-ups if you're a weightlifter.
No, they were warming up.
Yeah.
This is also their second session of the day, and they were still doing a 20-minute warm-up, a very thorough 20-minute warm-up. So their usual routine is everybody gets up at 6 o'clock. Coaches get up at 6 o'clock. Physios get up at 6 o'clock. S&C team, everyone gets up at 6 o'clock, and they do like their kind of track warm up. Everyone like walks around the track. Like it's not like they're not running 400s on the track,
No.
but they're doing again general team bonding, banter, walking around the track 6 a.m. Then they go for breakfast. Then they do their morning session, and not to jump off the timeline a little bit, but if you've ever seen any Korean programming or training, you may notice, if you're au fait with weightlifting programming to a larger degree, you'll know it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's very general for a lot of the time, and there's probably some good reasons for that.
Yeah, it's what I would say is it favors the general athletic development an awful lot more than it does weightlifting specific development.
Yeah, and general physical capacities it works on, and it seems to be all year round they focus on this. Now, they definitely obviously do lots of snatch, clean, jerk, but not as much as other national teams that we've seen. And when we think about it, we've seen German weightlifting, Romanian weightlifting, Uzbekistan weightlifting. Like, we've been to the Uzbekistan National Training Centre, we've seen loads of Romanian weightlifting, Kazakhstan,
Qatar
weightlifting. I'm sure there's more I'm even kind of forgetting about.
Some of the British national weightlifters.
British national team. They, of all these teams, in terms of their programming, favour stuff like those behind the neck thrusters, pressing, pulling, block pulls. The closest I can think of, Ukrainian, Georgian, the closest I can think of is probably more Anton's region of Ukraine, but still even more general than that. And Anton was saying that in his region in Ukraine, they have a couple of different styles of programming, and some regions in Ukraine focused on the Bulgarian method, and all the best weightlifters basically came from Anton's region, which focused a lot on static movements, moderate to high volume, plenty of sets, and 70 to 80% for much of the year for working sets and static movements, blocks, pauses, lots of pulls, lots of assistance work. And the Koreans are still more general, more often, for longer throughout the week.
Even throughout their day, they're so general. Like that track session at 6 a.m, bit of jogging, bit of aerobic stuff, moving around, getting themselves moving. Then the 10 a.m. session, super general as well. Mm-hmm. And then we got a glimpse at a few sheets of paper with their programming on it.
They were everywhere.
They were just, everyone had, we'll talk about it later, everyone had basically a work desk, workstation with a bench. Even those 10 a.m. sessions and even the afternoon sessions in many cases were very general.
So,
More so than anyone else.
So they finish their general warm-up, and then everyone moves in for their 3 o'clock Fridays on Fire. It's about 3:30 now. And on the program for the day, so everyone has the same program until they are given different stuff to do by the coach, unless they're injured. Now, there's a move into the actual weightlifting area, the weightlifting training hall. And everybody has their own desk on the platform. So there's 2 people desks on every platform. It's split down the middle, and everyone has their own workstation. Like, this is their office when they go in there. And this is one of, I think, myself and Fitz and Zach were really like enamored by this, was the fact that this is their desk. And as long as you're on the national team for this training season, this is your desk. You sit there. Your supplements are there. Your
tape is there.
Your tape, your notes.
Knee wraps, your notes, your written program is there.
Your chair is there.
Some people had buckets of Hershey sweets.
Heavier lifters had a bucket of Hershey's at their table.
Yeah, like all their kind of over-the-counter nutritional stuff is all there. Mm-hmm. And that is, so when they transitioned into that second room, which is 2/3 of that kind of full floor, there is an in-place, fully raised, permanent competition platform there.
3 feet of concrete, of
probably
mass
5 feet, like it's, or no, 4 feet maybe.
Actually, it was up to my
It's
shoulder.
tall, like,
it was up to my shoulder. Like. So there was like 3 or 4 feet of mass concrete, a huge competition platform. Like, this alone was one of my most notable favorite things, is the fact that this training facility wasn't meant to used to be a basketball court. It wasn't meant to be something else. This was only could ever possibly be a weightlifting training hall. And it made me so happy, because if this was ever to change, this would be such a drastic thing, because taking down that much concrete would be literally, you'd have to bring in excavators. Like, they put this in this room knowing that this room would never be changed unless something crazy happened.
Yeah.
You'd have to bring in multiple different exact fader. You couldn't take this down by hand. You
No,
couldn't. This
10
is not,
meters by 10 meters easily in area.
this is like, there's just like, if anyone's ever tried to renovate a house or do any kind of DIY or do anything like that or any kind of farming, you know that taking down this much concrete, for me, this was a symbol that weightlifting for them was really important, and they were going to give their team the best opportunity.
100%.
And that sounds really stupid, but it was just, me and Fitz were looking at that concrete, slapping it, being like
steps up the side, the exact same as any competition you've ever watched.
Yeah.
Like full oak beams platform.
Yeah, immaculate.
Yeah,
and a warp in it.
And then 26 platforms.
Yeah.
Set into the ground. Like lovely timber flooring everywhere, like you'd have in any sports facility.
Yeah.
And then you're inlaid. So around 3 inches kind of inlaid into the platform. We saw some of those platforms in the warm-up room that didn't have a platform in them.
Yes.
And they had like a kind of an epoxy resin underfloor in them. Super solid. Like the 13 men that are on the national team, there's, if you imagine I'm standing on the platform looking down, I have 6 platforms on my left, then 1 platform up the top and 6 platforms in the center. The females, 6 platforms, platform in the center, 6 platforms on the right. 2 U's, just so well laid out.
And you know what? So most platforms had a movable mirror, and that's a thing very unique to Koreans and a little bit to the Chinese team, is they like to train in front of the mirror sometimes for technical work. And every platform had this weird little contraption, a miniature platform on it. And if you imagine a board at the bottom and then just 1 step up either side. And we were trying to figure out, it was about a 3-inch elevation, maybe 2 inches of an elevation either side. And we were like, what is this for? And so this is for the national team, the elite level weightlifters, to practice moving their feet up off the ground. And I love this so much because, you know, you get people like, no, you want to slide your feet. You get people like Clockoff talking about sliding your feet, and it is fundamentally a misunderstanding, I think, of what moving your feet does for weightlifting. Like it's very important to understand that moving your feet adds barbell velocity. It gives you much more reactive control when you hit the bottom. It gives you better stability when you hit the bottom. It adds barbell speed. It adds barbell height.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Korean national team were practicing moving their feet with a contraption that was directly meant for you to move your feet up in the air.
And everyone had one.
Everyone had one at their platforms.
Yeah.
Was something that had just really chuffed me, you know.
Yeah. So moving on into the session, everyone goes into the next room. We kind of pack up our bags and walk in with them.
So I don't know if anyone knows much about Korean culture, but we brought gifts, a lot of cookies.
Yeah.
And it's seen as a very mannerly thing to do, very good etiquette to give cookies to your hosts. And we gave this team of the staff, I think of about 10 people.
Yeah.
Not different coaches, these cookies.
Yeah, they love the cookies.
Love the cookies.
So we walk in, gave them our stuff, kind of threw our gear bags off to the side in Joseph's office. We then watched as they had a general chat between everyone, and then everyone split off into their groups of probably 6 or 8, and they had chats with their specific coaches. So it's not just one. They have one specific head coach for the weightlifting team, and then every group of kind of 6 to 8 athletes had their coach as well. Like the heavyweights had their coach, and they talked through the program, talked through what the plan for the day was. Everything's super chilled out.
It's very, do you know what, it's not even chilled. It was like really somber. No one was talking anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone was really diligent.
Also, like, workman-like.
Yeah.
They're just going there to do their job.
Yeah, no one was tense or anything,
No.
but it was very much no banter.
Yeah.
At this moment.
Loads of banter at the start, bit of banter in the warm-up, no banter now.
Yeah, as soon as we went through that kind of doorway into the training hall, the banter stopped. Nobody was like, everyone was about their business. It was like literally an open office space and the boss is watching.
Yeah.
And you're about your job.
Yeah. You're chatting at the water fountain or you're down at the canteen. It's all great. You walk into the office, into the bullpen, and nobody's talking.
Nobody's talking.
So they go to their desks, they sit down. The desks is like this nice padded bench on them. They're putting on their weightlifting shoes, putting on their knee sleeves, getting taped up or whatever. You'll see the physios kind of popping in and out to different people, chatting away to them, seeing how they felt. And they just start moving barbells around, and it's all just kind of very methodical. You see them, empty bar, 5 sets of 3.
Then
70 kilos.
Yeah.
no chat, no nothing, just warming up. See them kind of looking around, chatting to the person next to them, but there's no major hype.
Well, the hype starts very, very slowly. And so the Korean team have this thing that you see in Japanese team, you see it in the Chinese team. They are super supportive of each other. And I really like this, and that everyone's lift is very respectfully treated, and there's always the weightlifting etiquette is followed. And the weighting etiquette, for me, is for the benefit of the athletes, and it's done because you respect that athlete, because there's a benefit for them, because you don't want to be moving in front of their focal point. So, but they're also treating each athlete with respect, and they start this thing where they basically start shouting, and someone will shout before you go to a lift, before you're on the platform, or as you're setting up, depending on your routine, and then someone else or multiple someone else's will shout, and the heavier the lift gets, the more the shouting happens, and
the more intense the shouting is.
And one of the things they shout, and I'm not making this up, and this isn't some weird joke, they shout fighting in English, but they shorten it, and it's said with a Korean accent, so they end up saying hiting or thing or thing.
Tang!
And this is, I wouldn't have noticed this until it was Yang had told us.
Yeah.
So Yang from Lift Weights had said that they shout fighting, but it's hiting or thing. And a lot of time they shout that, the English word, before they go do the lift. Now they obviously shout other stuff, but this is one of the things they shout.
And that builds to an intense crescendo over the course, probably 45 minutes as the snatches are going on.
Yeah.
Everybody's building up. So that day, Fridays on Fire, that day was programmed as power snatches, but Joseph basically said to us that everyone knows that you go heavy and you basically max.
If you're supposed to max.
Yeah. So there's probably 15% of the athletes are currently not maxing, or they're currently not in shape to max.
Yes.
You have 5 people, five people between the males and the females who aren't maxing today, and they might be doing a complex, they might just be spending a lot of time at lighter weights.
Well, I think it was like power snatches to 90%, I think was prescribed.
Yeah.
But the implication is that you're going heavy if you're supposed to go heavy.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And everyone seems to know. I didn't once see a coach being like, up.
It was usually like stop.
It was just like look over, and then they'd stop going up, And that build is palpable. We loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the environment in which weightlifting should happen. I know some people wouldn't be comfortable in that, or they wouldn't like that, but
losers.
To be honest, if you're a professional athlete, that's probably what your max out sessions should be. I thought we had been told by multiple people that it was going to be insanely loud, and it's like intimidating. To be honest, I thought it would be a lot louder.
Yeah.
I thought it would be.
Jang said that, and he's a bitch. So Yang Ho is a bitch, So he said it's really intimidating, but
Seb, like
Korean Seb, Korean Seb, yeah, he's a bitch.
Yeah, what I would equate it to is like if you played rugby, that would have been a rugby training session where people are talking. It's like, I'm wide, I'm here, wherever, I'm coming on your shoulder.
Team sports. It's a team sport. There's a match on. There's 100 people watching and shouting at you and the ref.
Yeah.
It's a martial arts grading. It's
100%
a jiu-jitsu competition.
Yeah.
It's a basketball game. It's whatever.
Exactly. It's like communication between athletes, and it's very, very good. Like that environment was phenomenal.
And there was, so a couple of athletes were actually doing the program. So they were like going to 90% for whatever single. They all worked up in like triples and doubles, loads of volume on the way up, which is something you see, for example, Anton has a lot. The Ukrainian team do a lot as a volume, and it seems to be the Georgian team do similar. Lots of volume on the way up on the sets. Like it's not, if you're doing singles, you do singles after like 60%. It's like triples, doubles. A couple of people doing their powers. Then there's a few people who are injured who are doing like random stuff. Then there's a few people who are supposed to go really heavy, and they were supposed to go heavy, and they were doing heavy snatches. Then there was 2 males who don't follow the national team program. Now, incidentally, they're 2 of the best weightlifters, and it was super interesting. So everything's really regimented. The Korean national team is paid really well. They're paid, as athletes go, they're paid very well in terms of forget about American sports now. Forget about NBA and forget about NFL and soccer, right? Forget about those, obviously Americans, not soccer, but forget about those three sports because they're paid, I think, if you win like Korean nationals, it's you're close to a wage of like 100 to 150,000 euro a year, which for athletes is incredible. And I know people are like NBA players, like stop a second.
Yeah,
like,
be realistic.
Yeah, that's for weightlifters who aren't Alien and Lasha are paid phenomenally well.
You're being paid what good rugby players internationally are being paid.
Yeah, like I think the base salary in the Irish team are what Munster is like 70 something thousand, or used to be. Is it something like
80 grand for up to $500,000
for a person.
Yeah,
The average person, that's a really good wage. Not athletes.
Phenomenal.
That's an incredible wage. That's those happiness studies say up to about 70,000 euro. No more happiness is seen realistically. Like, so think about that for a second. So people immediately, when you say things like 100 grand, they're like, that's terrible. And you're like, no, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
For weightlifters, anyway, it is. So you're paid really well. Your spot on the team is pretty cutthroat. Not like super cutthroat. It's not like in Ireland, the funding for carded athletes is very cutthroat. If you miss one season or one bad session, you could lose half your year's funding immediately. You won't get it, like, you know, or it'll be reduced by to 10% of what you're supposed to get. But these athletes are paid really well. If you win Korean nationals, or if you win at the Olympics, you get a lot of money.
Yeah.
The Korean nationals, I think, was more money than winning worlds.
and Korean nationals matters more than any other competition for your spot on the team.
Yeah.
They don't care about international camps.
So obviously coaches get bonuses. Like loads of countries do this. The coaches get a bonus if their athletes do well.
Yeah,
But there is two athletes, and you can guess one of them. Very jacked guy. You can guess, and you can probably tell from his training that he doesn't do normal weightlifting programming. And there's another dude. You'd want to be a good weightlifting fan more than a casual to know who he is.
but he was considered the best weightlifter on the men's side there.
He had the best chair as well, which was interesting.
That's so
Yang
funny.
pointed that out. That was very interesting. He had a super comfy office chair.
Everybody has great facilities. The better people have better facilities. Like a gamer chair, a baller gamer chair.
Yeah, he had like really nice chair. And I don't agree with that.
I don't like it.
I don't like it. I could kind of tell from talking to some of the other people there that it wasn't really like, it wasn't enjoyed, is how I can say it. But
How the tone that I picked it up in was that if you are X, Y, or Z, nobody's going to tell you you can't do something.
it's because the coaches' jobs rely on medals.
Yeah.
And if they're winning medals, it's like it's like having a rule where everyone is treated the same, even if the good people might get caught, you know.
Yes.
But on the flip side of that, though, if these two individuals, for example, on the men's side underperformed, they're like, we're gone. So it's really an interesting dynamic. On principle, I do not agree with it.
No,
Everyone should be doing the program. If you're the head coach and you're employed as the head coach, it's trusted that you know what you're doing. And I think it, on average, will produce better results for countries if everyone's following the same program. And you see this from loads of countries.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there's individualization, of course. But there's a difference between having rogue state actors in your national training centre that I think sets a very bad precedent as a tone in general.
Yeah.
Imagine a rugby team and one person's like, I'm actually not doing speed drills today.
Absolutely no way that would ever happen.
No way.
There's no situation where that could happen.
You know,
Eric Cantona,
yeah.
when he was playing for Man United, I think it was Cantona, was on a tour of Old Trafford a few years ago, and in the change room, in the Man U home change room, there's a room off to the side with like an exercise bike and some stuff in it. That was built just for him because he used to warm up with the rest of the team.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What happened to Roy Keane? Remember that thing where he was kicked off the team? Was it some World Cup?
Saipan.
Yeah.
There's not enough memory on any of these memory cards that we can explain the Roy Keane Saipan issue. Roy Keane and Saipan had a massive. So Roy Keane was the Irish soccer captain.
Give it a 10-second story.
At the time, the best player in the world in his position, so like defensive midfielder. Roy Keane was the glowing star of international soccer and Irish soccer. The Premier League was the best league in the world, and he was one of the best players in it. Roy Keane arrived in Saipan for the World Cup. A World Cup that they were training in a car park for.
Jesus.
Because of the management team had poorly organised it. He went crazy, said there's absolutely no way we're training for the international team for the World Cup. We're training in a car park. he basically put his badge and gun on the table and said, I'm out. If you can't do this, I'm done. And he walked away.
Oh, they kicked them off basically then, wasn't that it?
No, he walked away.
Oh, was it?
He said, if we can't make these changes, I won't do it. There's a massive portion of the population of Ireland thought he was a hero for doing it because he stood up for his team. Particularly people in this county in Ireland love Roy Keane because that's where he's from. A big portion of people in Ireland hate Roy Keane for it because they feel like he abandoned his country.
Anyway, back to these athletes. Basically, these two athletes, interestingly enough, weren't following the program. So I'll give you an example of one of them was doing lots of high volume pulls, and I mean 3 or 4 different variations of snatch and clean pulls. And the other athlete was doing something where it was most certainly Korean programming.
Yeah.
And it was starting off with like push press from the front, then behind the neck thrusters, then heavy-ish back squats. He was an 89 kilo lifter, and he was like repping 240. Beautiful squats.
Some of the nicest squats I've ever seen.
So powerful, so precise.
So gorgeous.
Then went and did full snatch and clean and jerk. And I don't care who you are, how talented you are. That's just a silly thing to do for weightlifting programming. And it was really interesting. And the coaches didn't pay a lot of attention to those athletes from what I
Didn't
saw.
really talk to them.
No, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Then we kind of finished the snatches. These athletes are doing their own thing. Still, the other athletes are still shouting. Well, actually, that's not true. So the one really jacked athlete is engaged and everyone's shouting at them or whatever, and they're involved. But this gaming chair athlete wasn't involved in the shouting. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that.
I noticed that. I noticed.
That's incredibly interesting.
I didn't see a lot of shouting towards him, and I didn't see
athlete number 2, very engaged in the shouting.
Yeah.
He's in the middle.
Yeah.
He is really
jacked.
Incredibly jacked.
Yeah.
Very much a team player by the looks of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice it with the other guy.
I noticed very reserved, not engaged, was facing the back wall.
Facing the back wall.
Facing the back wall and he's lifting.
Yeah.
He did his snatches facing the back wall, his push presses, his thrusters, his squats, his pulls. And yeah, it was interesting. So we had our snatches. There's only one person who did really heavy snatches on the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a 96 kilo lifter, worked up to like 165 or something, made a few attempts, missed 1 or 2, made a last one. Everyone's really happy. Coach is like, good job, whatever. Then we move on to clean and jerks. And I think we saw 3 lifters clean and jerk within, well, actually, one fella power cleaned within 20 kilos.
No,
30. He did a power clean plus hang power clean for multiple sets within 30 kilos of the world record.
Yeah.
So he was a 73 kilo lifter. Some of the best cleans I've ever seen. Gabriel level power and speed.
Some of the best cleans, yeah.
Power clean, hang power clean, split jerk with straps, 170. Did 3 sets with it. Just bang, bang, banging them out.
Yeah. I will say as well, when they were finishing their warm-up and going into the other room, he came over to introduce himself. So not on social media at all, really. Doesn't post a lot of lifts.
Mm-hmm.
According to Jang Ho, probably the best technician and probably one of the best international competitors in the room.
Oldest on the team.
32.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah. Comes up to us, shakes hand, doesn't speak English. We don't speak Korean. Comes up.
Did you not get a hug?
Shakes the hand.
Yeah.
Immediately goes in for a big hug.
I got a big hug, yeah.
With everyone.
Yes.
Amazing. And then jogs off.
Waddles up. Little hug.
Built like a brick shithouse.
Hugging him was like hugging a Shetland pony.
It makes no sense how there's that much muscle on someone that small.
Being someone of average height, it's rare I tower over anyone. And it's rare to tower over anyone who's stronger than me. But this guy was.
Oh,
it was literally.
God.
I've lifted calves and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was the same kind of like
density.
It was the same kind of like this thing could freak out any moment and knock me over. That was the same kind of.
It's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
Him being down there and that big.
And he just waddling.
Like, and then just a little runaway, you know?
Yeah.
Absolute gentleman.
Yeah. Like, just it was just so fun. His back was like fucking.
And his lifting technique for me was like, understanding from myself and Garth's point of view of like, we're in the room with, is it Park Lee Sang? Or Park
Young?
With her, with Lee Sang, with Yang Hak, some of the world's greatest weightlifters. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly you see this. I hadn't seen him lifting before.
I'd seen him. I knew of him, yeah.
Suddenly you see him lifting and you're like, this is the literal GOAT.
Yeah, it was when the snatches really got going. I loved it. It was just like the Korean technical model for me is probably the second best technical model in the world. It's just a tiny little bit behind the German technical model. The German technical model, I think, obeys a little bit more of the kind of biomechanical principles that make the most sense.
I also think the German model has its outline set a bit more.
Yeah,
It's a bit more rigid.
I'm going to put Korea and Germany and Korea as the top
Yeah.
two technical models in the world for consistency, what makes sense, what would be the most reproducible for amateur athletes to watch and learn from. I think probably is that the Korean national team, a lot of them are a little bit more built as a kind of weightlifting Lego figure kind of thing.
Yes.
They're a little bit more hyper selected for more people on average, where some of the things they don't need to do as much happens naturally. Like the sweep off the floor, which we were talking to them about technique and technical models and what they're working on, and that initial pull back off the floor is something they're working on. But if you notice, and if you saw the video we did with Zach where we worked on his start position, and we're getting him to sweep it back with the start position, because of their super short fibias and tibias, they're in their start position. Their toes are turned out. Their knees are pushed out or, well, tracking with their toes. And they don't need to sweep it back as much intentionally because their knees are already out of the way so quickly.
Because it already happens.
Yeah.
There's just not any knee or leg to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And that was, so talking to a couple of the coaches, their number one thing the head coach wants is the barbell moving backwards off the floor, which you're like, thank God.
Yes.
Thank God there's not something different happening here.
Yeah. That would have been a thoughtful thought to have.
Yeah.
But the main thing they were trying to work on was that. But because of that structure and their start position and their hamstrings are at or above parallel generally, and their shoulders are on top or in front of the bar, because of their builds of this, that sweep back happens a little bit more naturally for them compared to, for example, a lot of the German weightlifters.
Yeah, who really have to force it.
Like Nico Muller is a great example. The 85 who used to compete with DMAS is one of the best examples, you know. But we move on to clean and jerks. And I think there was 3 lifters who got within 15 kilos of the world records.
Yeah, incredible. And that's, if the hype and the tempo was building up during the snatches, I don't think that snatch hype got to 50% of the clean and jerk hype.
This was tense.
When people were going heavy, people were going heavy. Like we were standing behind one of the 67s, was it? Or 73s?
67, yeah.
Standing behind his platform, kind of half hiding, half trying to get out of the way, half making sure we could still see the lift. And he had 2 failed attempts at a clean with a pause at the knee plus jerk.
He hit himself in the balls in one of them.
And he was like lying on the ground, rolling around, kind of half laughing, but in pain.
No, he wasn't joking, yeah.
And the coach, after like 4 minutes, the coach came over and looked at him. Slapped like the solid slap on the shoulder, looks at us, starts laughing and walks away. And then he went and hit it. Everybody knew the crack there.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that this is the big one. And that was, the clean and jerks for me were the kind of cherry on top, the crown jewel of that experience. Those heavy clean and jerks.
As professional development, being there was amazing. But as content creator, I wish we could have videoed that, because that would have been unbelievable. It's been so entertaining.
It would have been great to look back on as well.
Yeah, to get a bit more analysis.
Yeah.
The
nicest inversion table I've ever used. Electronic foot clamp and electronic inversion. So nice.
So they all kind of finish up. They all do pulls, or most of them do pulls after kind of heavy clean and jerks. And they normally do assistance work then after the big session. But on this weekend, I think everyone just wanted to go home, basically. So we had an opportunity to interview the coaches and athletes, but using good social cues. Basically what it was like was a Friday afternoon in the office and everyone trying to go home at 4 o'clock.
Yeah. And there's these weirdos here who don't speak English.
And so we were like...
Or don't speak Korean.
And so Joseph was like, let me know, because let me know what athletes you want to talk to or coaches, because everyone's going home. I don't know if they're going home to their home or they were going back to the accommodation, but everyone was like packing up and leaving work Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So we were like, look, we'll just fucking leave it. It doesn't matter. The fact that we're here at all is amazing, so we'll forget about it. I know Clarence got an interview with Jan Hack, kind of a quick one, because he stayed around chatting, and
Jan Hack, the rapper.
Jan, one of my favourite things from the whole trip was at the end, a lot of the athletes that are left are literally loads of banter, loads of joshing with each other. And then I'm talking to Yang Hack, he's some English, and I'm with Yang, and then he starts rapping in English, and it was so funny because he was giving it socks. He was giving it 100% clean and jerk socks. Like, he was just rapping, and it was so funny.
So we all had a big picture with most of the people on the team, and then he just loved slapping and punching people and calling them sexy boy.
Mm-hmm. It was super funny. It was so funny. He rubbed my tummy. It was so funny because I told Yang, I was like, he's my favorite Korean weightlifter.
Yeah.
And he was like, follow me on Instagram. And I was like, I already do, whatever. Yeah. And he just started rubbing my tummy from the side. It was so funny.
No, it was amazing.
I know Zach and Jin Young Sung, the very, very tall 102, had a great bond. They were two giraffes.
As the two tallest people in the building.
The Jin was actually come back for injury, and he missed a 200 kilo squat, which was interesting.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we couldn't video as well is because World and Asian Games are coming up. They didn't want any kind of
specific numbers getting out there.
What's funny is basically 50% of the athletes were videoing their own training sessions and uploading them to Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and they all videoed them and stuff, which is fine. They obviously are athletes, they can do what they want with it, but it was interesting that they were just looking back at their own footage or just even having it for social media.
Yeah. It was, to be honest, it was one of the greatest days in sport I've ever had.
Yeah, it was. And look, there's loads of professional athletes out there, professional teams, but it was so amazing to see a professional weightlifting team treat weightlifting like this. There isn't many other countries in the world who put this level of professionalism, funding, and have this system that's akin to this. There's
just full stop, 26 full professional weightlifters all training in the same place.
Yeah, and most of them are very young.
Like China have that.
Kazakhstan kind of have it now because they do. Kazakhstan have it, but it's obviously been a bit decimated.
I still don't think they have 26 pros.
No, they do. They have lots of. Yeah, they have a lot of good weightlifters. Russia would have it. That's about it.
That's it.
Maybe Colombia have sometimes a big enough team. Their training facilities a bit more haphazard by the looks of things. There really is only kind of China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan seem to have it too. What's that, 4? And that's
it.
Then you get like the smaller countries who put work in, like Germany, for example. Mm-hmm. Romanian team has kind of been decimated the last few years. Most of the Eastern European countries don't really bits and bobs. Bulgaria have a couple of weightlifters, but it's nothing on this scale.
No.
Now I know obviously the Korean economy is pretty large and they have that money for them, but this was something else.
Yeah. I cannot understate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you enjoyed the kind of long form chat. This is akin to what a lot of our original podcasts were. It
actually is, yeah.
Two of us talking.
Yeah.
So thanks very much. If you have questions, put them down in the comments below and we'll do our very, very best to answer them. And we'll talk to you all again soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by our up-and-coming online Snatch MasterClass. This is on the 26th of August. It will take approximately 4 hours. At the time of listening to this, the early bird price of €89 will still be available, and the regular price of $99 will be in effect after this Sunday. It will go over the Snatch technical model, our Snatch technical model. It'll go over how we teach the lifts, the first, second pull, transition, pull under, the overhead squat, assistance work, programming, sets and reps, frequency, programming for masters, programming for 140 kilo snatches, 160 kilo snatches, 100 kilo snatches. You will see it all. Strengths relation to the snatch and how we come about that, pulling, assistance work, mobility, all of that good stuff. And sign up, send us an email at secretstrength.com. We will try and give you 25 odd years of weightlifting experience and learning from all these different national teams, and try and condense it into a 4-hour important, or a little bit less time for a Q&A at the end, hopefully. Try and condense it down into what we feel is the most important things for you to look out for. So if you're a coach or an athlete, beginner or advanced, I think you'll get a lot from this. We want to give you the most value for your money, and hopefully you can begin or enhance your current mastery of the snatch, or being a snatch teacher. Even if you're an athlete, you'll get loads out of this. If you're an S&C coach, you'll get loads out of this. If you're a weightlifting coach, you'll definitely get a lot of this. If you're an amateur weightlifter, you'll get a lot of this. If you're a competitive international weightlifter, you'll get something out of this.